people believe that when someone disrespects them, the natural response is to fight back with fury. They think that anger is strength, that shouting proves dominance, and that an emotional outburst is a display of power. But in truth,
nothing could be further from reality. Rage is not strength, it is exposure. It's the rawest form of weakness disguised as force. To understand power, you must first strip away the illusion of rage. When anger takes over, the mind abandons strategy. Rage burns clarity, replacing it with chaos. An enemy who sees you lose control does not fear you. They study you. They measure your reactions, learn your vulnerabilities, and discover the exact buttons to push the next time they want to manipulate you. What you consider an explosion of strength is in fact the moment you reveal your greatest weakness, your lack of control. History is filled with leaders who fell because they mistook fury for authority. Think of rulers who roared at their enemies, generals who raged at their soldiers, or kings who punished out of impulse rather than calculation. Their reigns were brief, their enemies cunning, their downfall inevitable. For every emperor who screamed, there was a rival who stayed silent, calculating the perfect strike. The lesson is eternal. Rage does not command respect. It invites exploitation. Machiavelli understood this better than most. He knew that the crowd may enjoy the spectacle of anger, but they do not follow the angry. They follow the one who remains still, who radiates control when everyone else loses it. In the theater of power, rage is nothing more than entertainment, and the man consumed by it is nothing more than an actor. The true ruler is the director, unseen, calm, and deliberate. Imagine two rivals in a heated confrontation. One slams the table, raises his voice, and demands obedience. The other sits in silence, eyes locked, face unmoved. The first man believes his anger intimidates. The second man knows his silence dominates. Which one would you fear more? The one who cannot control himself, or the one who seems untouchable, beyond provocation? The answer is obvious. Anger also creates enemies where silence creates followers. The furious man destroys bridges, alienates allies, and isolates himself. Even those who stand with him grow weary of his temper, for they realize that sooner or later, his fire will burn them as well. But the calm strategist builds loyalty because his allies feel safe under his command. They trust his decisions, knowing they are not born of emotion but of calculation. There is another illusion within rage, the belief that it forces submission. In reality, anger rarely compels true obedience. It may silence someone for a moment, but silence born of fear is temporary. As soon as the opportunity arises, the victim of your fury will resist, rebel, or seek revenge. Fear without respect is unstable, volatile, and ultimately destructive to the one who wields it. A king who rules with nothing but temper rules a kingdom destined for revolt. Respect, however, is built on control. Control of self, control of others, and control of the moment. When you demonstrate that nothing can shake you, that no insult, no betrayal, no challenge can draw you into chaos, you become untouchable. This is the first step to true power. Think about the last time someone tried to provoke you. Did you raise your voice? Did your heart race? Did you feel the heat of anger cloud your judgment? Now, imagine if, instead of reacting, you had remained still. Imagine the discomfort of the other person as their provocation dissolved into silence. Imagine how powerless they would feel when they realize that nothing they say, nothing they do can break your composure. That is the kind of power rage can never achieve. To master power, you must first master perception. Rage tells the world that you are weak, that you can be moved, that you can be controlled. Calmness tells the world the opposite, that you are a fortress, unshaken and immovable. This is why anger is an illusion. It promises strength, but delivers weakness. The illusion of rage also blinds the person who wields it. When anger consumes you, you lose sight of the bigger picture. Your energy goes to destruction, not construction. Instead of building strategy, you waste your fire on proving a point. And in the end, the point you prove is not dominance, but insecurity. The loudest man in the room is rarely the strongest. More often, he is the most desperate. But silence is terrifying. A calm man in the face of provocation forces others to question themselves. Why isn't he reacting? What is he planning? Doubt begins to spread. Uncertainty infects the opponent's mind, and their confidence collapses from within. Rage shouts. Control whispers. And whispers, in the right ear, are more powerful than screams. This is why Machiavelli taught that anger should never be your weapon. At best, it is a mask you wear for the crowd, a performance to distract. At worst, it is the knife you hand to your enemy. The great strategist uses anger sparingly and only as theater, never as truth. The true foundation of power is control, and control requires the rejection of rage. Therefore, remember this: every time you feel anger rising, every time your blood burns and your pride screams for revenge, ask yourself, are you about to show strength, or are you about to expose weakness? Will your outburst serve you, or will it serve your opponent? Power is not in the strike, but in the stillness before it. Power is not in shouting, but in silence that suffocates. Rage is a trap. It promises victory, but delivers defeat. The crowd may cheer your outburst, but when the dust settles, they will turn their eyes to the one who never lost control. That is the man they will fear. That is the man they will follow. The illusion of rage is seductive, but it is still an illusion. Break free from it, and you step onto the true path of power. Hold on to it, and you remain a prisoner of your own emotions. And in the game of power, prisoners never rule. They are ruled.
When most people are attacked, insulted, or provoked, their instinct is to defend themselves with words. They explain, they justify, they argue, they try to win with noise. But noise is not power. Noise is desperation disguised as strength. True power lies not in words, but in silence. Silence is the coldest, sharpest weapon of all. Machiavelli understood this truth. Silence unsettles the human spirit more than anger ever could. To shout is human. To argue is ordinary. But to sit in absolute quiet while another rages before you, this is extraordinary. It flips the dynamic of the confrontation. The attacker expects resistance. He expects retaliation. He feeds on your emotional energy. When he receives nothing, no reply, no explanation, no defense, he begins to collapse under the weight of his own noise. Imagine this. Someone insults you in front of others. They expect you to fight back, to defend your pride, to engage in their game. If you argue, you step onto their battlefield. If you raise your voice, you give them proof that they've reached you. But if you remain calm, utterly still, their power dissolves into the air. The silence becomes a mirror. They see themselves screaming, losing composure, unraveling. Meanwhile, you sit untouched, untouchable. Who is the crowd watching now with respect? Not the loud one, the silent one. Silence is more than the absence of words. It is presence without reaction. It communicates strength without effort. It suggests that you are not even slightly disturbed by the attack, that you stand above it, beyond it. The man who can stay silent when provoked radiates a frightening kind of dominance. His opponent feels powerless, as if striking a stone wall that will not break. There is a reason interrogation experts, negotiators, and manipulators use silence as a weapon. A pause in a conversation, a refusal to fill the space with words, forces the other person to reveal themselves. Human beings hate silence. It creates discomfort. They rush to break it, to explain, to justify, and in doing so, they expose their weakness. Every second of silence draws out more information, more insecurity, more desperation from the other side. What you win with silence is far greater than what you could ever win with words. Consider a battlefield of the mind. Two generals face each other. One shouts commands, rattles his sword, and boasts of his coming victory. The other waits, silent, eyes fixed, unmoved. The loud general burns energy, reveals plans, and exposes his fear through the sheer need to prove himself. The silent general holds everything back. His men look at him and feel steady, reassured by his calm. Which army would you rather serve? Which general would you rather follow? The answer is clear. Silence inspires loyalty where noise breeds doubt. But silence is not passivity. Do not mistake it for weakness or avoidance. Silence is deliberate. It is the conscious refusal to give the enemy what they want. They want your reaction. They want you rattled. They want proof that they control the moment. By withholding reaction, you deny them this satisfaction. You strip them of the illusion that they have influence over you. In silence, you reclaim the battlefield. Think about the last heated argument you witnessed. Who looked stronger, the one yelling the loudest, or the one who remained calm, letting the storm rage around them without moving? The crowd may enjoy the spectacle of anger, but deep down they respect the one who does not flinch. The still figure in the chaos becomes a pillar, an immovable force. That is power. That is silence. Psychologically, silence is terrifying because it creates uncertainty. People know how to respond to anger. They can match it, resist it, or escalate it. But they don't know how to respond to silence. When you do not react, they are left wondering, what is he thinking? What is he planning? Why isn't he afraid? That uncertainty breeds doubt, and doubt corrodes confidence faster than any insult or strike. This is why Machiavelli's law of silence is not passive, it is active domination. It places you in control of the narrative without uttering a single word. You dictate the pace, you choose the moment of response, if there will even be one, and until then, you force your opponent to drown in their own noise. Silence also has a way of magnifying your eventual actions. When you do not respond to every insult, when you do not waste your breath on every challenge, your rare words or moves carry enormous weight. The one who speaks less commands more attention when they finally decide to speak. The one who waits longer strikes harder when they finally act. Silence sharpens everything around it, turning even the smallest gesture into a blade. Consider how predators hunt. The tiger does not roar before it pounces. The hawk does not scream before it dives. They wait in silence, in stillness, until the perfect moment to strike. This is nature's law, and it is also the law of power. Those who master silence move like predators. They do not waste energy on displays. They conserve it for decisive, devastating action. Silence is also deeply personal. It protects your inner world from invasion. When you argue, when you rage, you open yourself up. You reveal too much. You hand over pieces of your mind to the enemy. But silence closes the gates. It keeps your thoughts, your emotions, your strategy hidden behind walls no one can penetrate. The more you speak, the more they know you. The less you speak, the more they must guess. And guessing breeds fear. In the workplace, in relationships, in negotiations, silence can be your shield and your sword. A boss who criticizes you publicly expects you to defend yourself. A rival who mocks you expects a counterattack. A manipulator who presses your buttons expects you to react. By refusing, you flip the power dynamic. You are no longer the one under pressure. They are. They now wonder if they miscalculated, if they went too far, if you are planning something they cannot see. Silence makes them nervous, and nervous people make mistakes. But silence must be wielded wisely. There is a difference between strong silence and weak silence. Weak silence is when you're too afraid to speak, when you shrink back and hide. Strong silence is when you could speak, when you could explode, but you choose not to. Strong silence is deliberate, controlled, and commanding. It is not the silence of fear. It is the silence of dominance. Machiavelli himself would warn, silence is not always the answer, but it must always be the first weapon. Use it before you use words. Use it before you use force. Use it to test your enemy's strength, to force them into mistakes, to drain them of their confidence. And only when the moment is perfect, break the silence with action so sharp it leaves no doubt who holds the power. Therefore, the cold silence is not emptiness, it is a strategy. It is the refusal to fight on your enemy's terms. It is the art of forcing them to reveal themselves while you remain hidden. It is the weapon that turns their noise into their downfall. Remember this: the man who argues may win a moment. The man who rages may win a crowd. But the man who sits in silence, unmoved and unreadable, wins the war. Silence does not just avoid conflict, it owns it. Silence does not retreat, it advances invisibly. Silence does not weaken, it terrifies. Cold silence is not passive, it is not cowardice. It is the essence of psychological control. And those who master it do not need to shout to be heard. They do not need to fight to win. They dominate without words. They command without effort. And in the end, it is not the scream of rage that echoes through history. It is the chilling silence of the one who never broke.
At the core of every struggle for power lies one principle that separates the rulers from the ruled, the dominant from the submissive, the feared from the forgotten. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this principle better than anyone. Power is never truly about words, nor about rage, nor even about momentary victories. Power is about perception, control, and the ability to dictate reality itself. From this truth emerges what can be called Machiavelli's law of power, a cold formula that governs every interaction where respect and dominance are tested. The law is simple: silence, punishment, control. 3 stages, 3 movements, 1 inevitable outcome. Whoever masters this cycle masters human behavior. Whoever ignores it becomes prey. Silence is not emptiness. It is strategy. It is the refusal to give your opponent what they crave most: reaction. When they insult you, they seek proof that their words reached you. When they test your boundaries, they want to see you break. If you respond with fury, you grant them satisfaction. If you explain yourself, you hand them leverage. But if you remain silent, you deny them everything. Machiavelli's first law is that silence is not weakness, it is psychological warfare.
It unsettles the enemy, makes them question themselves, and exposes their desperation. Silence forces them to continue speaking, to overextend, to reveal their true nature. It is the invisible blade that cuts before any visible strike. Imagine a court of nobles where one man accuses another of treachery. The accused says nothing. He does not argue, he does not shout, he does not defend himself. Instead, he watches. The silence grows heavy. The accuser begins to doubt himself. The court shifts uneasily, realizing that the silent man radiates a strength beyond words. The accuser, by contrast, looks frantic, emotional, weak. This is the first triumph of silence. It transforms the aggressor into the fool. But silence alone is not enough. If you rely only on silence, you risk being perceived as passive. Power requires not just restraint, but decisive retaliation. This is where the second stage emerges: punishment. Punishment is not about anger. It is not about emotional revenge. It is about cold, calculated consequence. Machiavelli insisted that when disobedience or disrespect is tolerated without reprisal, authority erodes. People learn quickly what they can get away with. If no price is paid, the offense will repeat. But if punishment follows, swift, clear, undeniable, respect is restored, and fear ensures obedience. The essence of punishment is proportional ruthlessness. It must be strong enough to leave no doubt that boundaries exist and that violating them has costs. Yet, it must also be precise, measured, and intentional. To lash out wildly is to look unstable. To strike with precision is to look unchallengeable. Think of the lion who ignores small irritations but strikes mercilessly when a true challenge arises. The jungle does not question his dominance because when the line is crossed, the response is devastating. Similarly, a leader in any realm, politics, business, relationships, must be willing to enforce consequences. Without enforcement, rules are just suggestions. With enforcement, rules become law. But punishment must never be born from passion. A punishment born of rage exposes you. A punishment delivered in calm silence terrifies. The victim sees that you did not act from impulse. You acted from principle. And principles are far more frightening than passions because they are immovable. The third stage of Machiavelli's law of power is control. Silence weakens the enemy. Punishment enforces consequences. Control establishes lasting dominance. Control means shaping perceptions so completely that challenges diminish before they even begin. When people know you cannot be provoked, they stop trying. When they know every violation brings consequence, they stop testing you. When you know you govern yourself with discipline, they assume you can govern them. This is control, not through constant struggle, but through reputation, through presence, through an aura that commands without effort. Machiavelli knew that true control is psychological. It does not require constant demonstrations of strength. It requires the belief, deeply planted in others, that strength will always be there if needed. A man who constantly shouts has no control. A man who rarely speaks, but his rare words cut like blades, controls the entire room. Control is the crown jewel of power, because it turns temporary victories into permanent order. The ruler who establishes control no longer has to fight every battle. He wins before the battle begins. His silence is known, his punishments remembered, his discipline unquestioned. People regulate themselves in his presence, afraid to cross boundaries that are never spoken, but always understood. The law of silence, punishment, and control is not theory. It is a pattern that repeats endlessly in history. The general who stays calm under attack while his rival panics gains the upper hand before swords are drawn. The monarch who punishes betrayal decisively ensures loyalty for generations. The leader who controls himself earns the trust of allies and the fear of enemies. Consider Rome. Emperors who screamed and raged rarely lasted, but those who remained calm punished betrayal swiftly and projected unwavering control, built legacies that endured for centuries. Consider modern leaders, those who indulge in emotional outbursts are ridiculed, dissected, and ultimately discarded. But those who remain unreadable, deliberate, and consistent, these are the ones remembered as unshakable. The formula never changes. Silence destabilizes. Punishment enforces consequences. Control cements. Machiavelli did not believe in illusions of morality when it came to power. He understood that humans respond more consistently to fear and respect than to love and fairness. Rage, explanations, and endless debates are illusions. They give the impression of power, but strip it away in reality. Silence, punishment, and control strip away illusion and reveal the raw truth of dominance. To practice Machiavelli's law of power, you must be willing to step beyond comfort. Silence is uncomfortable. It demands restraint when your pride screams for release. Punishment is uncomfortable. It demands clarity and calculation when your emotions demand revenge. Control is uncomfortable. It demands discipline when chaos tempts you. But in that discomfort lies authority, and in authority lies victory. Every time someone disrespects you, tests you, or crosses your boundaries, you face a choice. You can react with noise and give them what they want, or you can invoke Machiavelli's law of power. First, silence. Deny them the reaction they crave. Make them drown in their own noise. Second, punishment. Deliver consequence calmly, coldly, without passion. Show that your boundaries are carved in stone. Third, control. Build a reputation so firm that challenges wither before they are even attempted. This is the cycle that turns weakness into power. This is the law that transforms individuals into rulers and rulers into legends. Machiavelli's law of power is not warm, it is not merciful, and it is not easy, but it is effective, and those who practice it will find that they no longer need to chase respect. Respect will chase them. They will no longer need to prove strength. Strength will radiate from them without effort. They will no longer need to fight every battle. Battles will dissolve before they begin.